When you talk about architecture governance, like it's create bureaucracy, it's type of innovation, it slows down time to market. And also architects are sometimes far remote from the reality and they want the ideal state when practically what you can do is very different.
The foundation is infra platforms because they are the ones that powers your core systems, right? If you're bringing in a platform level capability, you have to be very serious about it.
Yeah.
If you're trying a new chatbot, you have the flexibility. You can restrict who have access to that. You can even say this is a trial beta, or but you can't say my ERP is a trial, right? That
Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 3. This is episode 33 of our Tech Chronicles podcast. And today's topic is a fun one. It is architecture governance. And for that, we have a very special guest with us, Anjana Somatilaka. Welcome, Anjana. Anjana
Thank you.
is a technology director at DBiz who provides architecture as a service for Australian companies. Perfect guest for this topic.
Yeah. And I'm super excited for this one because we are going to hear certain things that you're not going to find in the textbooks, right? This is real architecture evolution, like how we are going to make companies become more mature and become successful. Anjana, how do you want to get started on this?
Yeah, good topic. I thought let's start talking about scenarios where if you don't have architecture governance, like you don't have the setup to govern the architecture. Let's talk about that scenario. So I'll start with one. One thing is organization is a group of departments and different leads trying to do their work. If there's no governance, each and every department will have their own way of acquiring technology, buying technology, getting technology, adapting technology. Today is really easy. All you need is a credit card or just install something on your servers, uh, and you go and procure product, software, services. Right. So that you may have seen different departments buying different tech. So which is a very decentralized approach. That's one scenario of not having governance. What are other things that you guys have seen so that we can build these scenarios?
Yeah, it's asking for trouble as the organization grows, right? When you have different technology choices. So just to paint the context, this is like a company that's greater than 50 people. If you're a startup, maybe it's okay, right? It's like a few teams, but if it's greater than 50 people, this becomes hairy. Another one I would say to add to your list is no one's talking to anyone. Everyone is reinventing the wheel. There's no concept of reuse, right? And everyone solves the same problem in different ways. And so very hard to find economies of scale and whatnot. What else?
Yeah, I think I want to clarify one thing here. Angela, this is kind of new space to me. Like, talking about company that does not have like formal architecture. Like the companies I have worked so far, they have some kind of formal architecture governance. But I mean, this is a real thing, right? I mean, that's what you do. You provide architecture as a service to these companies that don't have this as a capability. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it's a real thing. The reason being, if you take a life cycle of organization, organizations solve the problem of the hour. Sometimes even the person who's responsible for the architecture gets their hands dirty and work on a product because that's the need of the hour. And then and then there are people who leave the organization after sometimes, and then the processes and the practices that they have followed, they fade out. So if you take a timeline, there may be situations where they have had these focuses, but also it changes. Like the focus, like maybe the strategic. Uh, if you take a department, right? Sometimes marketing is your strategic initiative. Sometimes the product building is your strategic initiative because they keep changing. Things can change, and that's what happens to organization over a period of time. And eventually, you are in a situation that tribal knowledge is all gone. Nobody knows how things work, but it works. As a whole, business works, but there are inefficiencies. That's a real thing. Yes.
So let me add to that then inefficiencies, right? If there's no governance or standard way of doing things, All these different teams will do their own logging, their own way of logging metrics and monitoring. And there's no way, if something bad happens, to piece this thing together and figure out the root cause. It becomes increasingly difficult.
Yes, another something related to that. If an employee leaves the organization, that offboarding process, while the onboarding is, you have the focus, you want to do the onboarding, which is required, but offboarding becomes afterthought. And how many systems do you have to offboard this person? And think of the security threat if you don't offboard someone from your CRM and things like that. Right? These are all indirect, but still very relevant to not having architecture governance, because from a organization architecture point of view, single onboarding and single offboarding has not been designed and implemented. So the decentralized approach eventually contributes to that, and it becomes a problem where you can't blame anyone because it's just a simple mistake of not removing a user from a system, right?
Can I can
That's
I
one.
bring a can I bring a counterpoint here? I think it's important to talk about both sides. I've also heard, so when you talk about architecture governance, it's create bureaucracy. It stifles innovation. It slows down time to market. And also architects are sometimes far remote from the reality, and they want the ideal state when practically what you can do is very different. Like, how would you answer that?
That's actually a very good question. Let's take example. The very reason a small startup able to do things really fast is because they don't have those layers. And the risk profile that they have, if you're a startup, if you're a really fast to value type of organization, there's nothing much to lose. But if you're a well established organization, it's a you have to strike a balance between the speed as well as the stability and how secure things are, how well established, because you can't, 'cause simple mistake like security vulnerability creates a big patch on your reputation, right? It kills the reputation. So you have to strike a balance between the agility and the speed, and also the reputation that you have built. Yes, it adds multi-layer. It slows down your decision making. It slows down. It challenges. Why do you need this? Why you don't have this and all that, and the security certifications, and you can talk about those layers, but they are for a reason. So it's the security profile that you sorry, rather the risk profile that you pick, and where do you want to be in that spectrum. You can't have all. You can't have reputation as well as the speed.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because if you're a startup, you are the architect, you are the engineer, you are the tester, you are the sales guy, right? But when you grow, as the organization gets bigger, there has to be better coordination, better alignment, and the architecture governance is that something that can bring everything together.
And
I
that's one reason big companies acquire product companies, small companies, because those product guys have gone through that whole cycle. Once you sort of acquire that company, the whole knowledge, speed, the product, and all of the risk that they have to try earlier on has been tried out. So that's one reason small product company becomes very nice target of getting acquired, because that's the risk that the bigger organization do want to take, even though they have engineers to build the product managers to build the product.
And Sanka, just to add to what you said, right? The things that you just mentioned about governance, the bureaucracy, the slowing things down. Honestly, those are misconceptions or governance done wrong. The idea of governance really is to provide autonomy, but with guardrails. Allow these teams to innovate and work within these guardrails so that they reduce the chances of doing bad things for the company. Right? That's the idea.
It's another angle to look at it as well. Yes, I think I agree with that. So another thing, when you don't have, so we talked about the sign in, sign out, use on board part. Another angle is, let's say three of us run three different departments. We have tech. Asanka and I, we decide to integrate our product. Like for instance, I own the CRM while you own maybe invoicing or some product of that nature. Two of us integrate our product. Now it's a point-to-point integration, and we have not spoken with Roshan on his applications and the needs. And then you end up with a very messy diagram with lots of point-to-point integrations, and some of the integrations are not even adhering to any standards, and sometimes you even share your database. I expose my database for Roshan to make a connection and he can see everything. I mean, it's not that because it's interdepartment within the organization, you might not see that as a threat, but after some time you forget it, and what happens is Roshan allows third party to come into their application right now because there's no governance. It is his need of the hour, and now that third party has direct access to the system through his system. So that's a security
Yeah,
aspect
vulnerability.
of it.
I like that one, right? And it obviously slows things down because the between your department, Anjan, and Asanka's, your team will spend a lot of effort to integrate it in for that technology stack. Let's say my team is using a different technology stack. You have to, redo all that again to integrate with mine. So we're basically slowing down innovation.
Slowing down innovation.
Another
Yes.
aspect to that is, let's say now your company grows, it's gaining some traction, and guess what? Very soon you'll have to take care of compliance and regulation and all that kind of stuff, right? How are we ever going to apply policies on all these different technology stacks in a smooth way? It's going to take years, right? If your technology has sprawled out of control. So that's another downside, I think, of
Other
not
downside.
having any
Yes.
standardization.
I'll bring another angle. Cost control is very important, right?
Oh gosh.
When you keep buying products per department, per use case, you end up having lots of applications very similar, which generates a lot of. One is the cost. Yes, cost is one factor. The other one is the needs of integration. More
Mhm.
integrations you have, it slows down your system. Let's say every system that you buy, every product that you buy needs to be integrated with your ERP, hypothetically. And after some time, you decide to change your ERP. Now, apart from the data migration, change management, all that, now you have to look at point to point integrations, which is like another at least 30, 40 integrations, because you have not thought through this, how to solve that problem. Again, that's a problem when you don't have the right governance. So I think we touched upon the integration complexities, cost implications where you are not able to control your cost efficiently, lots of security issues that can come in. And also, another dimension is the skills of the
Mm,
team. When
mm.
you have multi cloud, multi platform, multi this and multi that, you need multi skills.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to source those skills within the market that you operate in, or train and retrain people on so many other things, all those complications. So is there a solution to this madness?
Architecture governance, some sort of standardization. Asanka, I'm going to steal your thunder a bit, right?
Yes,
Today,
go for it.
so the way I think of architecture governance is like building a city. Governance is the urban plan where you specify where the roads go, the building codes, things like that. But architects within the city have the freedom to build beautiful buildings and skyscrapers within that plan, right? So that they still adhere to the code, but everything is unique in their own way and is that serves a purpose. Yeah, I stole your analogy idea today.
Yes. All good. I've come across this many times. We want to do the right thing, but the right thing means you're going to lose competitive advantage in the marketplace. You're going to go to market later. That's been lost of revenue. So you have to strike a balance between how you evolve your architecture while you are actually adding value to the clients. Right. So how do you build an architecture governance model that's kind of not rigid, like, but it's more like, fungible, like it's adaptable to what the organization need. And as we know, like if you take 10 years, like things change drastically anyways. Like what was new now, like is not what's new tomorrow, right? Things change really fast. And also like there are a lot of reference architectures out there already in place. So it's like a easy lift. But beyond that, like how do you keep it simple?
Question, and this is something most of the clients also ask. Hey, we know we need governance, but also we need flexibility, and we understand. End of the day, businesses have to make profit, create more traction, and they also need to move fast, regardless of the complications that they have to deal with later. So, good way of thinking is to look at all the technologies, all the applications that you use to run your business and categorize them into three baskets. Not to treat every application the same way, but to treat them in three categories. The foundational category is what we call the core applications like your ERP application that runs your core businesses. You take them really seriously. You don't replace them in every year or two. You run with if you implement ERP, usually it's a 5 to 10 year tenure, right? Those you have heavy governance models implemented. There's a lot of approvals before you change them because that's the core. And then you have set of applications what we call commodity, which are common, which has a lower uh, lifespan, but also you need to have those applications for you to be more competitive. You have to do things faster, quicker, and because those applications are not the core, but you still need them to compete in the market, you treat them differently. And then you bring another bucket, call your innovation bucket, at the top of the pyramid. And that's where you allow, okay, 5 to 10% is where the applications that we innovate and the applications that we try. And your user base is also piloted for that. It's not like you release that to everyone. You have much freedom to try those features with maybe a small segment of your user base. And you take a little bit of risk with those. And the new buzzwords like AI, where you can try there while they are not really breaking your overall stack. And for each category, you can have a governance model and a model, uh, basically a change management and a governance model for the rest of it. Core, you have to be serious because not having the core or a damaged core kills your business. It could, it can be that damaging. That can, so we need to take care of that differently than the rest of the application. Maybe that's a model that you can follow, or you can come up with your own categorization and say each of these has a way of treating them differently.
Anjana, I like that. Where would you bucket platform and prioritize building platform
That's
services?
core. That's okay. Core. The foundation is infra platforms because they are the ones that
Building
powers
that.
your core systems, right? So all of that, if you're bringing in a platform level capability, you have to be very serious about it.
Yeah.
If you're trying a new chatbot, you have the flexibility. You can restrict who would have access to that. You can even say this is a trial beta, or but you can't say my ERP is a trial, right? That's where my core systems are on trial. My banking system is a trial system. No, you can't say that. They have to perceive as well as act as stable, much more governed systems in that case.
Yep. Totally agree with you on that. So sometimes what I've seen is governance is actually a set of like a bunch of things. It's a set of principles and standards, right? A north star of what good looks like. It also includes processes, like this is how you release software, this is how you document your architectural decisions, right? It's not like willy-nilly. These are the approved set of tools. This is where we store our artifacts, this is how we make API calls. I can go on and on, to be honest.
Right?
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a set of standards that can be monitored and flagged if there are violations. Also, I think that the tooling aspect also has to be there to be able to have a successful governance model.
Right,
Yeah.
governance
So
can governance can also be automated, right? I mean,
Totally
especially in the
want to.
CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
I think good, very high level classification, Roshan, what you just talked about is to bring three angles: people, process, technology. So that pretty much covers everything, right? What process that you need to follow, and it can be automated, manual, and all that. And what people you need to have, the roles, because sometimes you need to have that role. And I mean, not sometimes, you need to have that role if you're serious about it. And then also the governance comes from the technology that you bring it in. Whether you're because if you're targeting to be ISO compliant, from infrastructure onwards, you have to be ISO compliant, or any other security for that matter, right? So it's a good idea to separate people, process, tech, and then focus on those three areas as to where you want to be from where you are today. So to To set up tech governance, when we talk to a client or a organization who wants to start that journey, my approach usually is to start with the team, saying let's pick leaders from each department, each capability, and form a team and say this is the team who governs the architecture of the organization, as opposed to just one person drawing diagrams in a remote room, right? That's to your point, Asanka.
So
And
you
it
advocate
brings.
more a federated governance model, right?
Yes. So then this is what we call ARB, Architecture Review Board. This is the board that reviews it. In this board, you have people from business functions, people from tech, infra, innovation, change management, and everywhere. And it's a very good representation of the organization as well. And it's a hub and spoke model where they take these guiding principles, Roshan, that you talked about, or the restrictions, the guardrails the organization has agreed to their teams. So by forming this, it's a change management to the organization. Hey, there is architecture review board, there is an approval process, and whether I'm building something, whether I'm simply adapting something based on the classification, I need to go talk to them, or I need to keep them informed. I need to get their blessing. That's a important communication across the organization. If you form the team and nobody knows, that's also not successful. That communication all the way down is very important.
One thing around that has worked in our organization, Anjana, is the mindset as well, right? So when you go to this architecture review board, right, the idea is they nudge you in the right direction. They're like, hey, have you considered reusing this piece because it comes from another team has built this? Have you considered using this technology? Rather than slapping you with a fine saying you did the wrong thing, because then people are scared to go to this architecture review board as well, right? So you want it to be part of your development process at every point in the cycle, at design time, at pre-release, release gating, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's a part of the process so that you're always learning and you're being nudged in the right direction to do the right thing.
Yes.
I actually favors a different form of architecture review board. So to Anjana's point, I like if the architecture team is federated and they are more embedded within each of the product verticals or the platform teams, like however your organization is structured. I think going into the architecture meeting, that formal ARB is more a formality because you should have resolved for the some of these new components or new capabilities or new patterns, or new technologies you want to bring, that you should have like gotten kind of agreement or the nod from the broader team ahead of the time. Right? Going there is like more of formality to say, hey, this is what we are doing for awareness. Have we not seen something that we haven't seen like throughout the conversations? So it becomes a more of formality as opposed to like, you build out a, new architecture roadmap and then you go there to find, hey, this is not something we want to build.
Yes. So exactly, that's step one. Forming the team is step one. And now let's talk about what's the responsibility of this team. I think that's where Asanka you are coming, right? The major responsibility of the team, yes, there is a review that happens for everything, but also documenting all the guardrails and the architecture guiding principles and publishing that so that ahead of time all the teams have that information, and also they are responsible to maintain what we call the architecture decision records, the reason why some of those decisions were made. It could be simple as uh, cost, could be as simple as locality, because your uh, database sits in the US region and you need a reporting server that sits in the US region. It's simple as that, but that's okay. You need to have that record and also provide these templates how to submit for a architecture review. What is the checklist? Creating that content, that is the process part, right? The people part is forming the team, and that team is responsible to create the right process so that it's not a alien technology or it's not something that you take it as a very last minute thought submitting to ARB. It's now embedded in their development process, embedded in the SDLC, so that they know the checks and balances and the questions, typical questions and the concerns this team would have, and also the rationale of that. It could be as simple as the cost or our technology preferences and things like that. So starting with the team, the people aspect, the process, which is writing the guideline. Third element is technology. The technology element in the governance, architecture governance is we as an architecture review board or the team defines these are the technologies that we would use for core services. The new technology, basically the technology radar, that you have to create that radar and say these are the areas that we would experiment. If you want to build a chatbot, our preference is this organization over the other. And that's a decision being made. And that technology is now given to the team. So teams, to your story, Roshan, now the guardrail is the technology platforms are also selected. On top of you can build beautiful products. But someone has to take a decision and control that, then keep it open. So those are the three angles that needs to be tackled, in my opinion.
Lovely, I love it. But I'll also add to that, Anjana, is this architecture review board, this initial group of people. They are the ones who influence what platform services to build, because these are like our Lego building blocks, right? So this is how we do API calls. Use this component. This is how we do policy management. You have to use this component, right? This is how we do logging and metrics. One way to do it. One way to do logging and metrics. So it's easy to stitch everything together, right?
Integration.
And then what happens at least in our company, what happens is then they build like a scaffold. So if someone wants to build a product, they don't start from zero. They build something with all these things already in place. It could be a few different technologies, but the approved technology. It could be, it should be Golang, it could be Java, whatever. But because the freedom has to be there to be choose, but it's already built with this pre-blessed stack of components where, to your point, Asanka, the developer doesn't make a mistake. They have this scaffold, they've gone from 0 to 50 already, and now they build the product on top of that because they're using these approved set of platform Lego pieces.
So, Roshan, I want to double click into what you just
Yeah.
said and also clarify for the listeners. I've seen both different type of architects. What you're saying is in your organization, they actually build something. They're more hands-on, not
No,
just,
they might
provide.
work with a team. They might work with
Yeah,
a team to build. Yes, correct. Yeah.
yeah, but then they actually provide some kind of
Yes.
actual framework that you can use as
Yes.
opposed to just a PowerPoint, which is very
Exactly.
different.
Yes. Something tangible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because then things can go, if it's just a PowerPoint, a document, there is a
yeah,
lot of room for error, right? And
right.
misinterpretation, right? So here we try to provide the tools for the developers so that if they use it, then they're on the right path.
Yeah,
Similarly, also, I'm sure Anjani will agree with this, is not only building it, but they also build guardrails in your CI/CD where they check, okay, hey, maybe you accidentally added a library that is not approved. We catch it and we
yeah.
stop deployment. Like things like that are already, they are the ones who bring that thought process in, saying, okay, let's add these gates into the process.
Yes. So let's talk about the advantages, right? Because we started with the chaos, we started with the sort of what needs to be done. Now, from an advantage point of view, let's say I work for a marketing department. I need to build a new customer engagement product. In a good governance setup, I know the technology to build the web application or the mobile application. I know what technology to be used for API management. Or maybe that API management is already there. Where to store file, the secure location, secure techniques, all that is given to me. So there's a lot of accelerators that I have where I only have to focus on the product design and solving the problem of that new customer engagement. Whereas the user login SSO or whatever that IDM identity management is given to me, the login, the operational the traceability part is also provided. So I now run on lots of accelerators where I just have to focus and build mine versus for me to think of the whole ice from scratch. So that's productivity right there if you do this right.
Yep.
That's one part of it. So the other major advantage, because we started with the integration complexity as well, right? When you buy the architecture, the technology part of the architecture, if you have defined an integration layer, usually the architecture governance will define what systems, what process, and what experience of the integration. So change in the system is just change in the system layer, because your process has separate the concern of the system. So you're not breaking the whole integration workflows. So your work becomes less tedious. Like if you want to change a system, all you have to do is adapt it to that system that needs to change from an integration point of view. Rest is theoretically, you don't have to make a big change. So those are the other advantage. So the security part, the problems that we talked about, right? Because the technology layer that you're using to build your products are sort of approved, and you have taken the checks and balances, less likely to be have a vulnerability there. So those are all advantages. We can go on lots of those, but yes, by simply having a governance in place, you can get all those productivity, as well as you can cover yourself from malicious activities.
Yeah. Just to add to that, right? My example about compliance and regulation, right? Let's say if you do follow the governance model, right, and everyone uses platform component. Let's say at some point suddenly a requirement comes to the company saying, "Hey, we need to, restrict these kind of APIs. You need to, audit every API call." Imagine if we didn't have a governance model, it would be a mess to go to, n number of points to add that. Now, to your example, Anjana, there's one place, maybe the API gateway. The
Yes.
platform team just injects this new policy as control, as code, and every API call is audited. It's logged. You can add policies around which ones are allowed and not. And so the speed of being able to react to changes also increases.
Yes. So I'll bring a something that I experienced, something that I saw in one of the clients. It's very good part of the governance. So what they did was they segregated they took the infrastructure, and they wanted governance in infrastructure because they are multi-cloud type of organization. What they did was they built a foundational landing zone, which is purely security and network, a recipe across all networks, all public clouds. Like for instance, they want AWS, Azure, and blah blah blah. So their foundation, what ports are being opened, the network connection, what security, all that foundation layer was built, so that can be deployed on each and every cloud, which only the security team has access to. On top of that, the product engineering teams build their application landing zone.
Mm.
And if they have to change the security policy across multi-clouds, none of these applications teams have to worry about it. It's given to the security team, where they can govern the network and the security. So that's by segregation. That's also another dimension that you can bring it in. Not giving, which is similar to the platform, but also by restructuring your teams, you can have more governance.
I feel we didn't answer Asanka's question about centralized governance versus federated governance. Let me take a stab at that, right?
Yes.
Um, for me, the answer is it depends on the size of the company. If it's a smaller size company, I would maybe under 1,000 people, maybe centralized would still work, right? Where there is a central group of people who, you know, uh, can gatekeep, how things should be done. But once you cross that threshold, it's very, very difficult. So what we do is this: there is still a centralized team, but the way they govern is through the tools and processes and guardrails. So it's like automated. And then we have like mini ARBs, right? Uh, Embedded within every team,
We
and
call
they
it
make
hub and
decisions.
spoke. We call it
Exactly
hub
to
and
your
spoke
point, right? And
model.
so each of these make decisions for that team within the realm of the centralized governance review board. That's kind of how we also do it right now. Does that
Yeah,
answer
I
your
think
question?
I think that
that's a
answers
very
my
good point.
question. Plus, my original question about like how do we still stay,
Hmm.
focus on the customer, right? Because you have kind of decentralized it, so you make faster decisions. Uh, I think with that, maybe we should wrap it up. Any last thoughts from anybody?
I
Or
do
are
want
there
to
any
talk
other
about
questions?
one
Yeah.
tiny thing for maybe 2 minutes.
Oh, sure, sure, yeah.
Asanka and Anjana, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what does the future look like for governance now with AI taking over our world.
Oh.
What
Good
does that
one.
mean?
Yes.
I think uh, for me, it's clear it's gonna be humans and machines, right? That's I think we have accepted that now. There
Yeah.
are agents, accuracy levels, and the capabilities of some of the LLMs may be limited, so as some of the human capabilities. But it's going to be a combination of agents plus humans. I'm not envisioning a world where it is completely agents. That's not right. It's a combination of humans plus agents. When it comes to governance, keeping the guardrails, these agents can actually do a much better job than humans because agents are non-stop, right? And you don't need, you can even think of real-time reviews, ARBs, with the agent. But you need to have mature teams to create these agents and give the right data, and so that they make intelligent decisions. And also, wherever you can't make the decision, that needs to be a human workflow. That's how I see it. It's a coexistence between agents and humans.
I
So
100% agree with you on that. The way I feel it is the ARB is going to shift left earlier and earlier in the development cycle, where maybe you write code and immediately the agent is able to catch that saying, hey, you're violating this principle, or you should use this library instead, and it's providing you this guidance from the get-go, right? And it's more to your point, Anjana, I would say it's a continuous governance, right?
Yes. And also, you submit your architecture, you start a conversation with your
Yes.
uh, co-architect and say, hey, I'm going to design it this way, I'm going to build this. Then the agent would say, hey, that's restricted technology.
Yes. Yes.
Or
yeah,
hey,
yes.
we have the other team, Roshan's team has built this. Why
Yes.
don't we consult that API documentation?
Yes.
So that's
So
like
going
having
back to
a
Anjana, what you said, each one of us working very independently. Now you have a AI agent that you can interact with. So your first review is with the AI agent,
Yeah.
right?
right.
I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. And maybe we can end at that, right? But hey, thanks a lot. This was a really fun conversation. Really nice way to kick off season 3. Really nice to have you, Anjana. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, we'll see you many more times again.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Anjana.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.